Okay, hello everybody. I don't have any slides. I just want to say, introduce myself. I'm from GRUVI. We're a specialist digital media agency. I've worked in film for about 10 or so years now, and more broadly in e-commerce since the start of my career. And I'm not going to sit here or stand here and say what things were like back in my day, but I think I do remember, and lots of you will also remember, things maybe being a bit more simpler on the internet. Marketing, I don't think, has ever been a straightforward process, but I think in terms of online activity, things certainly pre-smartphone were a little bit simpler. I remember posting things on Facebook and reaching the people that you wanted to reach, for example. It's safe to say that things are very, very different now, and that's what we want to talk about. Now we are in an always-on culture. We are in an attention economy. So we're going to cut through those buzzwords, and we're going to talk about that. How do we reach our audiences? How do we engage our audiences? What does that mean in terms of value? And importantly, how do we do it? So I've got three very smart people who know all about this, who do this every day, from marketing and operations in exhibition, and Paul from the BFI in terms of research. So I'm going to invite them up to the stage. They can introduce themselves, tell a little bit about what we do, and then we'll get into it. Thank you.
Afternoon, guys. I'm David Cameron. I'm the head of marketing for View UK in Ireland. Carla and I are going to sit together just to warm up. It's a bit chilly in here. So, yeah.
Cool. I am Carla. I am Director of Digital Marketing International at Cineworld Cinemas.
Hi everybody, I'm Paul McAvoy. I'm a research manager with the BFI. I'm responsible for the UK-wide audience projects. I've been a researcher for 30 years now, and yeah, I remember simpler times, certainly, as a researcher. Yeah, interesting times.
Okay, well, let's kick off then. Let's talk about that phrase then, the fight for attention. I think we hear it as a buzzword, but I think what's really important to audiences like ours is to look at what does that actually mean, but also what is the value of attention. So when you see a trailer get posted 8 months before a film's coming out, or you put out some of your own content around the brand or the offers that you run, how do you determine value from those, from that engagement and that attention that you get? David?
So I suppose why is the fight for attention so important? When we see our audiences spending so much time on our social channels, it's so important that we're engaging in the right way with those customers. I was looking at the latest stat. Apparently, Gen Zs are now spending 5 hours a day on social. I mean, how are they finding the time? We don't know. And that's 30 minutes up in just a couple of years at times. So, Lucy also talked around, from TikTok coming from nothing and going up there. It's so important that we are engaging and connecting with those audiences. And it's, creating great value because they are spending so much time there. We find it really sort of twofold. We can understand, as you say, how they're engaging with content and getting excited for what's coming, but also on the other hand, what are they talking about? These comment sections are so interesting, and there's real value there in terms of the insight that we're getting from our customers. Something Carla and I saw a couple of weeks ago when we were together a weekend away. We are the competition, honest. We saw it across Cineworld Views channels and probably a lot of your social channels out there as well. The Amazing Digital Circus suddenly just sprung up from nowhere, and it was all those comment sections coming alive and talking about something that our audience really wanted to see. So it's not just around what we're posting out there, it's actually listening and using these channels from our customers and listening about what they're saying too.
Carla, from you?
Yeah, no, I would agree with a lot of that. I think for us, we see digital as it's almost like our digital foyer. It's where the decisions get made on what films do we want to watch, what merch do we want to buy. Merch is becoming more and more something that people are really expecting when it comes to films. We're using those channels to, as David said, sort of listen to what people are wanting, what they're after, seeing that also as an indication of what interests people. And so I've seen on even just my own personal social, like Sheep Detectives just going mental. There's so many people reviewing it and going, it's not what I was expecting, like in tears, just talking about how amazing it is and how much they were crying, and it's not just a family film, you need to go out and see it. And that's sort of what I saw also at the beginning of like Project Hail Mary, where it was just all these TikTok videos of all these people talking about how it's a great film, you have to go out and see it. And it sort of had that momentum and built that momentum. And I think that's more and more becoming a thing where people are desperate for word of mouth. Like what is something that we can talk about together? What is something that we have in common that we can discuss together? Like it's almost like a trend at this point on social media of like the people seek a community, and that's definitely something that is happening on social media and with across the digital channels, that people are really trying to find like niche interests of like, let's talk about this topic. And obviously film and cinema is just such a big thing that people love very dearly and have big opinions on and want to then share and then talk about.
So you talk about people talking about cinema online and on social media. What is it that you're looking for alongside the conversation? What is it in terms of, let's say, metrics? What is it in terms of engagement? There was an AMA with the head of Instagram recently, and someone asked him what was the kind of the metrics that he doesn't look at, and he talked about follower count, being that kind of thing that's overrated. What is it alongside the conversation that you guys are looking for to give you those signals that something's going to be successful or have traction or go viral?
I think from my side, authenticity, which I know is another buzzword, but like what is something where like you watch something and you go, no, they weren't paid to say that. They weren't, they weren't influenced to say that. They didn't just get to attend a fun event and are raving about having a night out and getting treated, and they want to keep getting treated, so they're saying something because they feel like they have to. When you're seeing like those videos I was talking about, when I was watching those, like you could tell that people genuinely had this passion and genuinely cared about this film and genuinely cared about the experience and the going to the cinema and doing all of this. So I think one of the things that we look at is, right, what are things that are speaking to people, that are getting people excited, and how can we then jump on that? So, for example, the Mandalorian trailer drops, our social media manager, she'll go out and she'll take screenshots of like Grogu in the trailer, post that on social media and be like, we're already obsessed with him. And then that will get a lot of engagement. That'll get people, jumping on the conversation, talking to us about it, interacting with our content, and building this relationship with us as a brand that we understand the excitement because we're part of this community. We're the same as you. We are also excited. We also think that Grogu is adorable. And so we have so many posts, like even recently, like our most highly engaged posts were just about like rewatching Project Hail Mary for the 6th time and still crying, or being obsessed with Rocky and quoting, amaze. And so that would then lead to conversations with our community on the internet that then ultimately translate into them coming back to our cinema and engaging with our staff in person as well.
And David, from you?
Still can't believe I cried at Rocky. I suppose authenticity is such a valid one. Myself, it was a real learning for me. I'm a real brand marketeer, and when we were really working with some of our new content creator agencies, I was really trying to protect the brand to begin with, and I was like, we don't want it said like this, and it was a big learning curve in terms of actually these content creators know their audiences really well, know how to talk to them, how to engage with them authentically, and I think it's really allowing them, if they're delivering the right messages and you're giving them a good brief, for them to then engage with their audiences in a proper, authentic manner is definitely something that pays back.
Okay, we'll come back to the sort of the types of things that you do and that you create in a minute. I'm going to bring Paul in there. Paul, can you tell us what the BFI's audience study reveals about smartphone behaviour and mobile-first content use? The BFI, we've just yesterday published the first paper from our audience. We've got a running audience screen engagement tracker called Asset. We completed Asset 4 last year. We're
we've published the first paper yesterday, and yeah, Lee, that's exactly, the paper is called Small Screens, Big Focus, and it's very much focused on the impact that those devices in our hand are having through the funnel, through the whole landscape ecosystem. Some of these insights might be a surprise to you. If you go on the tube, you see everybody doing exactly what the research is telling us. But the first thing we do is explore the kind of key differences in terms of how demographics are behaving in terms of screen devices. And the most significant difference we saw was in generational divides. There's a real marked difference between how younger audiences use screens and use their devices compared to older audiences. For example, younger audiences, 16 to 24-year-olds, are between 2 and 5 times more likely to watch every form of screen content on their phone compared to older audiences. And then in terms of that habitual behavior, short form, no surprise, short form video on social media attract the most habitual regular form of engagement in terms of daily engagement. 16 to 24-year-olds you watch short form content 5 times heavier than older audiences on a daily basis. So really it just speaks to the fact that the mobiles now and these social media platforms are the discovery engines and the access points for younger audiences. We're going to hear a lot more about Gen Z audiences this afternoon, but I think this speaks to hopefully what we'll hear in this afternoon, and also to what Lucy was saying. So mobile is very important, but we also explored the psychological reasons that people engage with screen content, and what we found with in terms of engagement with short form on the phones. The key drivers, as well as for young audiences, they say that habit is one of the key drivers. But 2 of the other reasons for engaging is because it's for distraction or because they're bored. And I think this is quite important in terms of understanding the attention economy. Engaging the phone doesn't always mean really deep content. It can be shallow attention, and I think that's important in terms of branding and marketing campaigns, or that social buzz, trying to get social buzz, is that this landscape is often is quite shallow attention that you're engaging in, and I think that's important in terms of this.
Okay, there's a lot to unpick there. We'll come back to a couple of those points. Again, let's look at that from the marketing perspective then. So, Carla, David, what is it that you guys are doing? What is the output from you guys as exhibitors that importantly is looking at that, capturing that attention, but then again, what's important for the people in this room, how do we move those people from scroll to screen? How are we putting content out there for different types of audiences that we know is going to drive people to buy tickets in our cinemas?
I think the distraction thing is really, really interesting, and I think whether it's been your insight and understanding the Gen Z still want to switch the phones off when they come to cinema. Yeah. We're definitely seeing that as well, and it's how we've evolved the brand from a marketing point of view as well. So our last brand campaign, Get Lost, was very much around free yourself of distractions, come into this room and allow yourself to really focus on the story. And we've literally just launched our latest brand campaign, Feel It Forever, which is very much around building on that Get Lost platform, where it was about this distraction-free environment. When you do switch off and allow yourself to totally focus on these great stories that are getting told on these big screens, is that you're actually switching on to bigger emotions. So you're allowing yourself to enjoy that story even more. You're enjoying the connection in this room, and that's something we're trying to bring across. Clearly, social's playing a big part because we need to talk to the audiences and bring them into this experience. We were very fortunate when we launched Get Lost that it was 2019, and we had the audiences coming, and the pre-show was doing that. As we're trying to bring these audiences back in, social's playing a massive part about bringing these experiences alive. We've done things like starting with a tease campaign and then build that to a full launch, so that we're connecting with these audiences and building them and taking them through what the experience is.
Yeah, and I think from our side as well, on not just on social, but across other digital channels, we are sort of leaning into that. Like, we know this, so how can we fix this? So we have some creative that we've got live at the moment that sort of says, like, sort of your TV could never, your screen could never. Why watch a film like this? And like literally showing people watching a movie on their phone when you can do this, and then moving to the big screen, and sort of incentivizing people to change their behavior by calling it out and not necessarily shying away from that. Like, we know people watch movies on their phone, so let's show them that this is not as good as that. So. We definitely utilize that when we think about creative and how we talk to people and making sure that we make that connection. Yeah.
And how does that apply for everything beyond the film then? How does that apply to the loyalty program, the F&B? Can you talk a little bit about how you engage audiences online through more than just the film?
I think it's something we're all seeing. It's about the experience. We've already talked about the experience this morning. And merch, for example, is something that's becoming massive. As soon as we post a trailer now, some of the first comments are around, what's the merch? What have you got coming? And we're now ready. We're following up those merch posts straight away, and the engagement and the excitement of those is fantastic. So, it's not just about the film itself, and it's something that we definitely see we see the studios doing the role of talking around the films. We need to talk around the total experience of seeing it on the big screen and everything connected with it.
Yeah, for sure. We lean into like the FOMO aspect a lot. Like, you don't want to be the last person to watch this movie. You don't want to be the only person who doesn't have this merch item. We also do quite a lot of content around 40X. So this whole, like, this is more than just cinema. It's like an extra experience. So it's extra immersive to try and get those, the people who are sort of almost like junkies trying to thinking to not get their phone out when they're watching a movie on the big screen, right? Well, if you're also getting moved around in your chair, then that might help you like distract yourself enough to be okay with watching a film on the big screen. So we use that as like another way, and we talk about IMAX, and we talk about ScreenX, and we talk about all the different ways that are like just so different from the at-home experience that make you want to come out and take that step and actually leave your bedroom or living room.
And I think that's such the benefit of social as well, being able to connect those right audiences with those right messages. And we've been doing a lot of investment at View for things like even bigger, better recliner seats. So our Ultra Lux seats are perfect for that date night, or taking your best friend to see Devil Wears Prada 2. How do we talk about that versus actually our Lux seats are great because you can take a group of people and you're closer together. So it's connecting that right audience with the right proposition as well.
And can you talk a little bit about the formats? So can you talk a little bit about how you're actually creating content, what it is that you're making, the kinds of channels that you're using, and how do you get to those decisions as marketers? How do you start to, when you're planning, think about what might work on what particular channel for what particular audience? There's so much of it now. How do you unpick that, and how do you make those decisions?
I think it's really evolved over the last few years. I think a couple of people have talked already in terms of, in the past we could have just put out an ad on Facebook and people were responding to it. And that's definitely not the way. I think what Carla talks about, authenticity, is so important. And I think being able to connect the right audience with the right person, with the right message, is becoming such a bigger thing. People really see through when you're being too pushy, too salesy, and they are not going to be wanting to engage on your channels if that's all you're wanting to do. I get pressure from different departments, shall I say, across the business, saying, do another post on this, do another post on this. And actually, there's a far bigger piece around how are we working and engaging with our audience and building the audience for it, so that it becomes a brand that they actually love and want to be part of.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we always try to find ways to make the content as authentic to the channel as possible. So when it's TikTok, whether it's ads or organic posts that we're putting out, we try to make them as organic feeling to the channel, so that if someone sees us in a wild ad while they're scrolling through their mindless doom scroll, that they don't get immediately taken out of the moment, go like, oh, what's this, and get annoyed by it and like skip it immediately, but kind of get intrigued and go like, oh, what's this? Oh, and then almost not realize there's an ad until a bit later on. So we try to create content that is fun, that makes us feel like we know what we're talking about. We're equally as excited for the product, whether it is a film or whether it's a special format like way of seeing it. Whether it's merch items, we do quite a lot of just like showing off the different merch items in different ways to make it feel fun and interesting, and just utilizing the channels and creating content that makes people watch it because they think it's interesting or funny. Like our video strategy is sort of pillars around, it needs to either be entertaining or educational, and if it's neither of those, it's probably not good content. So that's sort of what we do when we create our content. And sometimes we do quite addy actually posts if it's like launching a new offer or something. But if you do it in a funny way and you kind of go like, right, I've got 10 seconds to tell you this thing and I need to tell you, then people still sort of, it's this hook is what they call it. Like, how do you hook people in to actually watch them the rest of the video and get the message and get to the message that you want them to know?
You've just set up the next question quite nicely there. So the next question was just about paid versus organic or creator content. When should people use it, and when is it best? When is paid best versus when is organic, authentic content best?
I think it depends on what you're trying to push, what the message is that you're trying to push. I think creator content is great if you are trying to reach an audience outside of the people that you're already talking to, and in a more authentic way. Because if you get people, and whether that is just people in your local community who have a bit of a following, who speak to other people in your community and get them to actually find out that there's a cinema nearby, or whether it is like more national, bigger creators and you want them to, on a bigger scale, have awareness of a product or something. Creators can be really good for reaching audiences that might not otherwise be engaging with your content in that way, and might not necessarily be targeted with ads in that way because of how they interact with their social media. That's where we use creators, versus then paid is what we do to just get the scale, because especially channels like Facebook and like Instagram, if you're not spending money, you're not really going to get any views. You can get lucky on you can get lucky sometimes on Instagram. You can get lucky sometimes on TikTok. We had a TikTok that went viral and had like 2.6 million views or something organically a couple of days ago, but that's the exception, not the rule. So when normally our videos get like a few thousand views, then we need to see what we can do to push that content out and push our content out more broadly. So that's how it's sort of like the marketing funnel in like, broader awareness versus like actually pushing people to convert. So when it comes to awareness, we use creators, and then sort of mid to lower funnel is where we use like paid and organic.
I think just something on organic as well is why I think from exhibitors we're really passionate about creating our own content, making it tone of voice, etc. I know there's a desire at times from studios that we are posting the same content, etc. We've got to remember that cinema goers aren't that loyal to the brands, and they might be following a number of brands as well. So, there would be nothing worse on a real loyal cinema fan scrolling through our feed and seeing the same content. And I think it's something that hopefully you see a real difference across these two social channels when we're talking around a cinematic experience and film, but you're getting a tone of voice across as well.
So, we know that most people are in some way broad social media users. We know that different audience types, they're using this for distraction, they're using it for information, they're using it for all of these different reasons. Paul, what does the research tell us about the implications of that heavy social media use for our cinema partners, for our exhibitors?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a challenging one because I think we might have a perception. We spoke about this. Is it a myth or not of doom scrollers? Do they ever leave their phone down? And we found in the research is that these habituated social media users they're not abandoning other content. They're actually heavier users of other content. This audience, this daily users of short form, are 30% more likely to go to the cinema. They're nearly 40% more likely to stream. So this kind of, I think, reinforces some of the previous research we saw. So it isn't like they've abandoned everything. They are there. You can reach them. The challenge is how they're engaging. We know that they're more likely to be dual screening if they're at home. So it's a fragmented kind of attention economy. But what we've seen in this research, though, and it's really significant for exhibitors, is that when it comes to cinema, we asked the Gen Zs. The key question we asked them was, do you want cinema owners, the exhibitors, to allow you to use your phone and to talk to other people? And only 14% of all these Gen Z said they wanted that. They really see the value in cinema being a digital oasis. It's really key. So in opposition to that always-on distracted environment that's outside the cinema, we also saw that the main reason they go to the cinema is as a social outing, that social connection, that the social value of cinema is so important for younger audiences. The talkability as well, they really scored highly the importance of having spoken about the film that they went to. So that anticipation is a kind of key driver, I think, certainly for social as well, in terms of building that anticipation, talking about it, creating a cultural moment and sustaining it is something that we see in this research as well. I think it really reinforces cinema's value in this hectic world.
I think we're going to put the link on the screen either at the end of this, or the link will be shared around, so you will get.
Have a look now and ask me questions.
Okay, just not to bring too much doom to the conversation, partially about doom scrolling, but does the research sort of throw up any risks of this attention-based, always-on economy? Does it throw up any risks to exhibitors, to our plans for the future?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we asked one of the questions about what type of content is really important to you, and it's all about relevance, being personalised and meaningful. That's what audiences, especially young audiences, expect. They're being digital native. The algorithm has shaped so much of how they engage with content, so they're expecting that content to be for them. So it's a challenge in terms of anybody who's distributing content and sharing content now, is that the content and the experience needs to be meaningful, needs to be authentic, needs to be real for them, and I think that's a challenge. The other thing we saw is that we asked about the urgency to go to the cinema, and younger audiences say that they feel less urgency in terms of going to the cinema. I think that's because obviously streaming has probably had an effect as well in that. So I think that speaks to the need of creating an anticipation and all the opportunities that are in successful social media campaigns.
That's interesting. It's not on my list here, but do you want to comment on that? I mean, we see obviously younger audiences in terms of numbers growing. There's a lot of conversation around obviously family audiences and younger adults and their engagement with cinema. That's quite interesting that there's a slight correlation between what we're seeing in the research. Do you guys see a strong, healthy, younger audiences coming through?
I think what's interesting is the younger audience is always topping up. Mm-hmm. So you've got new families coming into the market all the time. So how do we keep on reminding those audiences of the big screen opportunity? We know that people drop out when they're having kids to begin with, and then therefore it's quite a different cinema experience. So therefore, how do we talk to those new parents or wider family about the opportunity of coming to the big screen?
Yeah, I think the side of what you were saying with there being so much content out there and the doom scrolling and everything, I think it makes sense if you think about it. There's these people who are scrolling, they're constantly finding out about all the films that are out as well. Because you're spending all this time online, you're then more in the know of what's out and have therefore maybe more of the FOMO because you feel like, well, everyone is talking about this movie, so I need to go and see this movie. But I think, and I don't have any research to back this up, but this is just my opinion. I think with films like Project Hail Mary, we've therefore seen that it's not necessarily like, oh, it's opening weekend of this film and everyone saw this and they need to see it like the day the film comes out. But it's more that then as they can see the trickle on social media where people are seeing the film and then talking about it, more people are then seeing the film and therefore talking about it. And then it's sort of later down the line and it's more like week 2, 3, 4 that the films are then still like picking up and
that's how
sustaining.
social and the community, you know, that we haven't discussed fandom and community is perfect because it can sustain beyond the opening weekend or the opening, week. It's about creating kind of cultural moments, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
So let's get into practicalities a little bit. Do you guys, from the marketing side, do you have advice for the audience about how they can really start to practically measure the impact of their activity? Like, what are you guys really looking for, and what would you say to the kind of audience about how they can really make the most of it and really determine what is valuable and maybe what isn't?
I suppose we've all heard of sort of vanity metrics, and there's some things, in terms of, does it really matter how many followers we have on the accounts, etc. As you're going through the funnel, we definitely need to get awareness out there of the experience, but then how are we seeing intent to purchase as well? So are people, clicking through? Are they saving it? Are they sharing it, etc.? Because that's showing genuine interest and being positive in terms of the comments. We've talked lots about the comments areas. There's a wealth of information in that as well. I think what we're talking there about, not necessarily always the urgency, what we call in the afterglow, when people are talking about it afterwards as well. It's not just in the before. There's so much richness within what's going on in those comment sections after the experience as well, which films like Project Hail Mary, it's helping them along too.
Yeah, I think I would say it's an opportunity. Like, the current way that social media works is an opportunity, because you can not have a lot of followers and still get content out to a lot of people. And the algorithm works in a way where it is getting served specifically to the things that you engage with. So if you are in a smaller community, then people can find out about you and then share that in that community. And so reaching the younger audiences is possible through social media if you're creating content in a way that is native to the channel, and if it is fun and entertaining. You don't have to have a lot of followers to get content out to a lot of people and get seen, which I think is a great opportunity. And like, there is there was an M&S chain in Romford that had a TikTok account that had thousands of views because they were just making fun content and people were buying into those characters and into those people. And so I think it's an opportunity. I think exploring those channels, and I understand if your audiences are older and you know that Facebook is working and you have limited time that you're sticking to Facebook, that totally makes sense. But I think try and explore, maybe get one of the youngest people that you have working on your staff to just go wild and create some content and try that, test that, post that on Instagram Reels, post that on TikTok, and sort of just see what happens, because you've got very little to lose and you have quite a lot of opportunity to explore.
Absolutely. Is there any other channels, so I'm thinking about Letterboxd, things like that you guys that are emerging, that you guys are testing things on?
We do have a Letterboxd account. We're finding it a little bit trickier to like engage with people on there. So we create lists of, like, if you're doing like a film season, like we have a Spielberg season on at the moment, so we create like a list of all the Spielberg films in the film season, so people can follow them and sort of tick them off as they come and watch them. We interact with reviews of anyone who tags us in their reviews, so that we sort of respond to those. We do reviews of films. Everything is 5 stars. Don't worry, distribs. So we do sort of a bit of that. But for us, it's sort of the channel of the core people who we kind of don't really need to sell on the product. Like, they're already coming because they're already massive fans. So we're spending a bit less time on there, but we do have an account.
Yeah, similar. I think, it's interesting that we've got channels like Letterboxd appearing. It's great to have that. Reddit as well, in terms of the conversations that are happening in there. Again, lots of wealth of information. You can certainly hear when customers are happy or have got opportunities on there. When we launched our loyalty program, and there was people not getting a couple of stamps to begin with, we were hearing about it there. So you can certainly feel the engagement happening. So yeah, as well as these traditional ones that we're all using, I think thinking about some others, keep on testing and learning.
And last question before we go to any audience questions. I just want to touch on AI a little bit, because we've talked about all of these different channels, we've talked about all of these different audiences, and we know that this AI revolution, we're very much in the middle of it. But what I'm really interested from your perspective on is, how do you see your customers using AI? How do you see them using AI to discover your cinemas? Does it go deeper than that in terms of show times and more? And how are you responding to that as marketers at the moment?
So AI, obviously buzzword at the moment. Everybody, has to, any talk, somebody mentions AI. I was very lucky to have an experience last week, a session called AI Made Easy. Don't know how it's supposed to be made easy, but there's so much going on in there. I suppose it's evolving so fast as well, and we're seeing customers already switch off from ChatGPT over to Claude, etc., and using and searching lots of just everyday information on that. So some of the key things that I learned on that away day was very much around, don't just sign up to one AI platform. If you are working with any of these, they are better at some things than others across. So how are you exposing yourself to the different platforms for the user case? One of the things we're using it for is to improve the customer experience on the flip side as well. So understanding what our customers are saying to us very quickly and analysing that so that we can improve their experience.
I think it's incredibly hard to predict where AI is going to go. My 64-year-old mother-in-law uses AI and talks to it just as though it's her friend, and we'll just ask random questions and advise on, like, I've got this plant in the garden, how should I look after it, or whatever. So I think we're moving in a direction where maybe instead of going to their friends and family, people will go to AI and say, I want to go to the cinema on Friday, recommend a film that you think I will like based on everything you know about me. So I think it's something that we definitely should be thinking about. I think we should be figuring out how we then reach those people in those places. And obviously you already have, if you go on Google search and you search for any sort of information, the Google AI summary of random information that sometimes makes no sense and sometimes is correct. So there is definitely things that are happening in the world of AI that we need to continue being aware of. But sort of knowing exactly where to go is quite difficult, and I think it's definitely something that we're thinking about, but we don't yet have concrete steps there.
And just to point out, just from an audience research point of view, I think YouGov published a paper last October just exploring audiences' perception and attitudes to the use of AI in terms of film and cinema discovery, and the kind of broad brushstroke results were that they were absolutely happy with AI helping them find the right content for them, so that personalized and meaningful content. But once it kind of moved into any kind of creative sphere, they were much less comfortable. So it's kind of a binary, help me find what's for me, but in terms of the content and they're much warier, more wary about that.
Okay, interesting stuff. Do we have a couple of minutes for questions? Do we have any questions? Again, I can't see that all the way back there.
Hi. So my question is regarding, since like this fight for attention isn't exclusively, I think, the like exhibitors' responsibility, but also the distributors. How do you feel that conversation or those negotiations are going to look like in the future for like exhibitors and distributors working together to, you know, win the fight for attention?
Good question.
I think, yeah, having the awareness of this definitely helps. Working with, like, distributors working with cinemas to put on events definitely helps. The first few bits of feedback that I got from for Project Hail Mary, sorry to keep banging on about that film, was people leaving a screening, and they weren't huge influencers with hundreds of thousands of followers. They were just people who had expressed an interest in this film on their social media and were then invited out and were invited to screenings at a couple of different exhibitors and then talked about it on social media. So I think seeing what can be done to work together in that scenario of how do we spread the word together, and sort of what David was saying, not just expecting like the same content that gets plastered everywhere to get pushed out, but working with cinemas to create bespoke content for the channels to help raise awareness. It's definitely something that like we've been really privileged to get access to, even different like mascots or whatever for films, and doing silly videos in our foyers of people in costumes and stuff. And it makes it then that you are promoting the film, but in a very channel bespoke specific way that is also then very bespoke to Cineworld. So it takes multiple boxes, and it gives us more ownership.
Yeah, I suppose it is exactly that. It's a partnership and working together in terms of how do we get that sort of what's going on in the film and being able to talk about it in our tone of voice as well. And very similarly, we've been very grateful for some of the partnerships that we've done that have allowed us to create experiences in our venues as well. So only a couple of weeks ago, we had our runway ready screenings for Devil Wears Prada, where people got the runway magazines, and those thousands of people that came that weekend, we asked them to dress up, and oh my word, that was an experience. So working in partnership is certainly, I think, the way forward.
That was the alarm for 40 minutes. Okay. On that note, we'll say thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much to the panelists, and enjoy the rest of your day.